I guess the more cynical part of me wanted to start this by saying something like, I'm not much of a New Year's resolution guy. But in fact, I think that the new year is a good time to take a minute to reflect. And specifically reflect on, what happened over the course of the previous year, as well as what you'd kind of like to see the next year bring or look like, or however you want to phrase that. I don't think there's anything magic about setting a goal specifically to begin on New Year's Day. For instance, if you know kind of what you want your next year to look like, in early November, then just get started. There's no reason to wait. But with that said, I do think sometimes you need a checkpoint. Sometimes you just need a minute to, like a defined moment in time. Not necessarily to have a clean break, but to reset a little bit and reflect and set up some new goals and ideas. And in the same way that there's nothing magic about January 1st, there's also no reason not to use January 1st as a way to do that. Now, in terms of resolutions themselves, I don't know. Some of them have become so trite, right? Like a common one. Oh, I'm gonna lose weight, or I'm gonna get in better shape, or whatever. And one of the problems, I think, with using January 1st as this pivotal kind of point in time, it kind of comes at a bad time. That's part of it. And then secondly, if you give up by February or whatever, all you've done is set your year up to kind of fail, particularly depending on how you have phrased your goals and how flexible your goals are, and also just, what your goals are. I think that the exercise thing gets pointed at so often because it's so easy to define while also being so easy to fail. It's so easy to say, oh, this year I want to lose weight, which in and of itself is not the best goal, right? You might want to set some kind of number around that to make it more concrete. I don't know. I could argue that either way, I suppose. There is something to be said for just a broad goal of like, want to be healthy or want to lose weight, but it's also good to sometimes have some, constraints around that. But regardless, it's very easy to say that. And then there's a few problems with it, right? One problem is it's very easy to push it off, to say, well, it would only really take me a couple of months to lose 10 pounds. I'll do it in May, right in time for like beach season or whatever. And then May becomes June, June becomes July. The summer rolls around. Everyone wants to go out and party and have drinks and whatever. You have a bunch of barbecues. You're eating like burgers and drinking beer all summer. And all of a sudden, May, June, July has become August, September, November, and you're right back where you started, right? That's one way it can fail. Another way it can fail is like, you go and you try to do the gym thing. It's like, oh, I'm going to go to the gym. And then you get to the gym in January and you realize, oh God, this is terrible. And you have no habits that you've formed to actually build your life around a gym membership. And that falls apart very quickly, right? There's just so many ways that can fall apart. With all this being said, I really actually didn't mean to go down some random tirade about exercise. What I wanted to say was, I have a system that I've been using for a few years to kind of set up my year to come, as well as reflect on the year before. And it's worked pretty well for me. It's simple. I think this is the kind of thing that really anybody could do. If you have in past years, set some resolutions for yourself or goals for yourself or whatever, and you find that you're A, routinely not achieving those goals, and B, feeling kind of bad about it, this could help. So my solution is fairly low tech, right? I don't have an app, or I don't even know if I'm sure there are apps. I don't know. I've never explored it. I don't have an app for this. I don't sit around journaling. Like, I didn't write it on my wall. What I've got is in my Dropbox, which is Dropbox is what connects all of my computers and devices, right? That, and I suppose iCloud, but Dropbox is where I have like my stuff, because it predates my time with Apple devices. So I've just had Dropbox forever. Anyway, I have a file. Actually, and now it's I think 4 or 5 files right at the top of my Dropbox, right? So it's not sitting inside of some nested folder. It's right at the top. And it's called 2025 Year in Review. And actually, I had a 2024 and a 2023. I think I started doing this back in 22. But anyway, I have these up now through 2026. So I just started my 2026 file. And anyway, so I'm going to talk about the 2025 one because we just wrapped up that year. So I have a file called 2025 Year in Review. And the file has 3 it's just a text file. This is not a Word document. It's nothing. It's a text file. I don't care about spelling errors. I don't care about formatting. It's not even in Markdown, for those of you who know what Markdown is. It's just text. And it has 3 sections. The first section is a list of goals that I defined the year before. And I'll talk about defining those in a second, but that's the first section. The second section, I leave a little bit of space and I go to another section. The second section is a running list of stuff I do during the year that I think is impactful in some way. And I'll talk about the kind of stuff I list there in a second. And the third section, and this third section I usually don't, add to the file until somewhere around November. But the third section is a running list of goals / resolutions, quote unquote, that I want for the next year, right? So it's what am I trying? So section 1 is what am I trying to do this year? What are the things I set out to do? Section 2 is what are the things that I have actually done? And section 3 is what do I want to do next year? And this is a semi-living document and throughout the course of the year. And what I mean by that is I keep section 1 alone, right? So, and section 1 is in 2 places because it's both at the top of this year's document as well as at the bottom of the previous year's document. Because the previous year I created those goals and then I just carry them over into this year and put them at the top so I know kind of what's going on. But section 2, where I just list stuff I do that I think is impactful or important or achievement kind of stuff or whatever, that goes in section 2. And then section 3 is where I set up my next year. So the kind of stuff that I put in section 2. Now, anything that I try to, if I make progress on goals that I had set, the things up in section 1, I note those items here for sure. But I also list other stuff that I've done because, I'm sure most people fall into this category. You might set goals A, B, and C for the year, but you might end up doing X, Y, Z instead. And those things might have been a real positive impact on your life, whatever those things you ended up doing instead were. And they should be noted. And at the end of the year, it shouldn't just be, did I do these things that I set out to do? It should be, did I do these things I set out to do? And what else did I do? What else do I think made this year positive, impactful, make me feel accomplished? What is it that I did during this year, essentially other than sitting around and binging Netflix and scrolling through my phone, right? Like other stuff. So I'll give you some examples. And there's usually a few categories I have under here. If I made any particular progress towards any, side hustle, business endeavor, major career stuff, I list that here. Even if it wasn't part of my goals, I list that here. So for instance, one of my goals from one of these prior years was I wanted to diversify my income a little bit, have more income sources than just a full-time job. And over the last year or two, I have picked up sort of my side contracting web development kind of stuff. So that's something that I have written down, because while it's not my full income or anything else, it has supplemented it to some degree, and it's something that I feel accomplished about. I also have a section in there of concerts, events, trips, vacations, that sort of stuff, because I think that those are things that it's really easy to just never go and do, right? It's easy to be like, oh, I love concerts, but this one was too expensive and that one was too far away and this was on an inconvenient date and whatever. Concerts are a part of what me and my family do. We try to hit a few a year, and I like to write them down, whether it's me and my wife and kids or just me and my wife or whatever. I just write them down here. And then other significant events, like, did you do something really interesting and fun for your birthday? Did you do something really interesting and fun for someone else's birthday? Did you go on vacation somewhere that was cool? These may not sound like quote unquote accomplishments, but at least for me, in today's world, the fact that you take time for yourself to go and do something interesting, again, something that's other than just the same old routine and sitting around and doing the same 3 things every day, these things should be noted. I also have a section in there for books that I read that year, because once again, it's really easy to just not read, at least for me. And so writing down, having a running list of the books I read that year, it's nice to look back that year and reflect on that and be like, you know what? I read 10 or 12 books, or I read 5 books, or you know what? I read 2 books, did something. And I kind of remember, which ones of those did I enjoy? Which ones of those were impactful? And those are things to note. So those are the sorts of things I tend to list in that what did I do this year section. It's direct reflections on how I did with my goals. Did I make progress on my goals that I set the year before? What books did I read? What events did I go to? What concerts did I go to? What are the things that I really either want to remember or do remember readily? And then is there stuff that I've done with my career, sometimes like more personal accomplishment, progression kind of stuff? Was there a thing or two that I did with my kids that I really want to make note that it's almost a running list of things that would have been super easy to not do, but I decided to do them instead. And in some ways you could think about it that way. And then finally, section 3, I usually don't start putting that together until like October, November. It's usually that like that last quarter of the year where I start looking at this document and saying, ooh, like, how did I do that? How does it look like I'm doing? Because by October, November, you look at some of these goals, and if you had a goal on there that was going to take you all year and now it's October and you haven't started it yet, that one might not be getting done this year, right? So then I start writing up my goals for the next year. And I don't have a huge list of them. 5 items-ish, plus or minus, right? And they don't have to all be super significant giant things. It can just be something small that you really want to do. Or it could be more long running. I'll give you an example. This year, I've long been a musician, kind of on and off through my life. I play several instruments, guitar being kind of the primary one among them. And in recent years, I've really kind of slipped out of it. Like I don't play much, and I haven't played with people in a long time. And what I really loved about music was playing with people. So I have a goal this year to find a group of people to play music with. There's an embedded goal in there of I need to start playing music again, right? Because I'm super rusty. I couldn't just easily jump in with the group and really do much of anything. So I want to do that first. I need to do that first, and then I want to try to find some people. And that's a big goal for me this year. And come October, November, I'm going to look back at that and it will be pretty clear. Like, did I do these things? Because there's both a broad goal in there of like, quote unquote, start playing music, which is very broad. And there's something very specific in there too, of with the intention of playing with people. And that I think is a good structure for a goal where there is a kind of yes, no binary. Did you do it or not? While also having something broader under the hood. Because when you look back and reflect on that, that could go a few ways, right? At the end of the year, I could say to myself, you know what? I didn't find a group of people, but maybe I tried and it just didn't shake out. But you know what? I've been playing music all year, and that's pretty good for this goal. You might not hit it 100%, but if you have kind of some specific elements to a goal and some broader elements to the goal, you can reflect on the whole thing and get a sense of like, did I progress here at all? And I have some other ones as well. Now, the way I use this file, this text file document through the year, I don't sit and have this up every day. This is not a thing that anyone should be stressing about or worried about. Once every few months, I might only check in on this once every 3 or 4 months and just look at it. And I'll write down a few things I've done, right? And there's certain checkpoints too. Like, again, like I mentioned, there's some things embedded in here that are useful. Like when I finish a book, because reading is a section in here, it prompts me to go check this file, right? Because I finish a book, I want to write it down in my file, and then I'll also take a few minutes and look at the rest of the file. And it's a good checkpoint to think, ooh, am I making progress towards the things that I wanted to do? Do I remember what the goals I set were? Same thing with concerts. Like I'll go to a concert and then I'll think, a week, 2 later, like, oh, I want to write down that I went to that concert in my file. Go back to the file, gives me the same kind of opportunity, look through it, blah, blah, blah. And then as I get closer to the end of the year, particularly into December, that's when I start looking at this file more regularly. Like I have it up and just sort of up running idle on my computer. It's just kind of there in the background because it's a good time then to reflect and think to yourself, how did I do with these goals? And that's when I go up into that first section where I have the year's goals listed and I start bullet pointing, writing down in that right there underneath the items. Did I do this or not? Did I accomplish anything here? Did I do anything resembling this year? And that's also when I start my file for the next year. I'll create a new file. It'll be called, this year it was 2026, year in review. Any goals that I've established for myself, I carry them over right around New Year's and I start my new file and I start my new running list of like things that I'm happy I did this year. A lot of this can be boiled down to that, is you make a few called shots. You write down stuff that you're happy you did that year, that were out of the ordinary from your routine. And then you set up some called shots for the next year. And I found this to just be a very effective method of this. The other piece to this, again, there are some intentional pieces in here. Like I said, I put this in my Dropbox and I'm often in my Dropbox. The name of the file is also very intentional. It's called 2025 Year in Review, which means it starts with a number, which means that when my Dropbox is sorted by name, which it usually is, like the name of the file, it's toward the top of the list. It's sitting right there. So it's not that I sit around and make it a habit to check this all the time, but I have enough built-in mechanisms that I happenstantially check it throughout the course of the year without it ever feeling like a burden. It's named with a number, so it's at the top of my list. I think to do it after I read a book. I think to do it after I go to a concert. Just some of these checkpoint items that's like, oh, I remember this file. I set this up a while ago. Let me hop in here and update a couple things and read through it. It's minimal effort, but it kind of keeps me on track with a few things. It keeps me on track with remembering what I set out to do, number one. And number two, it keeps me on track with just keeping a running list of things that have kind of made me happy that year. And at the end of the day, those are great things to reflect on when the next year rolls around. without being a high pressure, high intensity, I must lose 10 pounds in March thing that's just set up to fail. This is a way to catalog both the things you have set out to do, like did I do them or not, but also all of the other things that you do along the way that are also important, even if they weren't your initial called shots. So, if you're looking for some kind of really simple system and you're not really sure, how to make a resolution or a New Year's thing kind of work, but you're feeling that itch of like, I'd like to do some things differently this next year, give it a shot. It's worked really well for me. It's simple. And I've been keeping up with it for 4 or 5 years now. And it's just a great way to kind of easily catalog things without a lot of, crazy effort. Just to keep an eye on what your year really looks like and what you really want to do next.